My wife joked about our marriage ending in 6 months. So I left my ring on the table and walked out forever. If you ever want to know exactly how fast a joke can blow up your whole life, I can tell you the answer. 8 minutes. 6 words from my wife, 1 sentence from me, 1 silver ring on a brunch table, and the man I used to be ended before the check ever showed up. It was a Sunday, the kind that's almost annoyingly perfect. Blue sky, warm but not hot, people walking dogs and pushing strollers, the whole neighborhood smelling like coffee and bacon. My wife, Hannah, loved places like that, trendy little spots with chalkboard menus and $7 lattes. She said it made her feel young and spontaneous. I usually just felt crowded and broke, but I went because she liked it. That morning, she was glowing. New red crop top, yellow skirt, curls done just right. When she walked out of the bedroom, she did a little spin. "Well?" she asked. "You look great," I said, and I meant it. "We going to brunch or an audition?" She laughed, kissed my cheek, and said, "Relax, it's just the girls. You'll be the only guy. Try not to embarrass me." That stung more than it should have, and I don't even know why. Maybe because it wasn't the first time Shed said something like that. Little jabs, always wrapped in a smile. Jokes about my job not paying enough, my hairline starting to retreat, my dad energy at 32, even though we didn't have kids. Still, I shrugged it off. That's what I did a lot in our marriage. Shrug it off, swallow it down, tell myself I was being sensitive. Her friends were already at the restaurant when we got there. 4 of them, all loud and polished, talking over each other, mimosas in hand. They greeted Hannah like she was the main character in their little movie and gave me the polite, quick hugs you give to a coworker's husband whose name you never remember. We sat at the big round table near the window. They started in on the usual. Who was getting promoted, who was dating who had just come back from some tropical vacation. I listened, added a comment here and there, mostly focused on my coffee and the menu. Then the conversation turned to relationships. It always does, eventually. Seriously, one of her friends, Megan, said, "I swear, if Ryan leaves one more pair of socks on the floor, I'm divorcing him." They all laughed. Hannah rolled her eyes dramatically. "Tell me about it," she said. "Marriage is exhausting." That word, exhausting, hung there for a second. I glanced at her. She didn't look exhausted. She looked entertained. "How long have you guys been married now?" Another friend asked us. "For years," I answered. "Feels longer," Hannah said, sipping her mimosa. "I give this marriage 6 more months, tops." They exploded. Full-on, head-thrown-back laughter. Someone actually clapped. A couple at the next table turned to look. I just sat there, feeling my face burn and my stomach drop like I was on a roller coaster I never agreed to ride. I tried to tell myself she didn't mean it, that it was just her trying to be funny, to keep up with the drama of the conversation. But there was this little pause before she said it, this tiny smirk at the corner of her mouth, like she knew exactly where to stick the knife. "Come on," Megan said, nudging her. 6 months? Be generous. And that's when something in me just snapped. Not loudly. No yelling, no slammed fists. It was quiet, almost peaceful, like finally admitting to yourself that a car isn't going to start no matter how many times you turn the key. I smiled. It surprised me how easily I did it. "You're generous, hon," I said. "I give it 6 minutes." They all laughed again, but this time it was smaller, confused, like they could feel the shift but didn't know what it was yet. I looked around the table, at the half-empty glasses, at the sunlight hitting the silverware, at my wife, who was staring at me with this tight little smile that said, "What are you doing?" And I realized how tired I was. Not the kind of tired you fix with a nap. The kind that comes from years of trying to prove you're worth respecting to someone who thinks disrespect is just joking. I slid my hand under the table, twisted my wedding ring once, twice, out of habit. I remembered the day Shed put it on my finger, her hands shaking, tears in her eyes, promising me forever. Back then, Shed looked at me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to her. Now I was a punchline. I don't know what exactly made the decision for me. Maybe it wasn't one thing. Maybe it was 100 moments like this, piling up behind my ribs until there was nowhere else for them to go. I took a breath, pulled the ring off, and set it on the table, right between our plates. For a second, no one moved. "Honey, what are you doing?" Hannah asked, her voice light, but her eyes darkening. "You said 6 months," I said quietly. "I'm just moving up the timeline." The table went dead silent. Her friends stared at me like I'd stood up and flipped the table. The noise of the restaurant faded into this dull hum, like we were suddenly underwater. I pushed my chair back and stood. My legs felt weirdly steady. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't raising my voice. I was just done. "Wait," she said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back, just out of reach. That hurt her more than anything I could have said. "You don't get to joke about our marriage like it's a scratch-off ticket and expect me to just laugh along," I said. "Not anymore." I didn't make a speech. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded once, turned, and walked out. The air outside hit me like a wave, cooler than inside, smelling like car exhaust and roasted coffee beans. I could still hear the muffled chatter from the restaurant behind me. I half expected her to come running out, to grab my arm, to say she was sorry, that it was just a stupid joke. She didn't. I walked down the block with no idea where I was going. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Work email, probably. I ignored it. Every step away from that restaurant felt like I was stepping out of my old life, shedding it like a jacket that never really fit right. I made it to the corner before I realized my hands were shaking after all. I leaned against a brick wall, took a deep breath, and looked back through the big front window. She was standing now, phone in her hand, eyes wide. Her friends were all talking at once, heads bent together like they were trying to rewrite what had just happened. My phone was still silent. I started walking again. 1 block. 2. I didn't check the time. I just counted intersections. Counted breaths. Counted how many times I told myself, "You finally did it. You finally chose yourself." I was halfway across the 3rd intersection when my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. 8 minutes after I walked out. I stared at it, standing in the middle of the sidewalk, cars rolling past, people brushing by me with their shopping bags and coffee cups, all of them completely unaware that my life had just cracked down the middle. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, and I had no idea whether I was about to answer or let the last chance at our marriage go to voicemail. I answered. I don't even remember deciding to my thumb just slid across the screen. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Hannah's voice came fast and high, noise from the restaurant clattering behind her. "You can't just walk out like that. You made such a scene." "I made a scene?" I said. "Well, yeah," she snapped, then softened. "You freaked everyone out. It was a joke, Ethan. Obviously. You know that, right?" For years, joke had been her bandage. Every jab, every little public humiliation. If I flinched, she'd roll her eyes and say I couldn't take a joke. And every time, I'd talk myself down. She didn't mean it. She's just nervous. She's just trying to be funny. But standing there on the sidewalk with cold air in my lungs and that empty groove on my finger, I realized I was done treating joke like a hall pass. "No," I said. "It wasn't a joke." "Of course it was. You meant it enough to say it," I replied. "That's what matters." She went quiet. I could picture her at the table, friends staring, phone pressed to her ear, hating that, for once, she might be the bad guy. "Can you just come back in?" she whispered. "Please. Everyone's looking at me like I'm some monster." I watched the traffic light change from green to yellow to red. Something in me settled. "I'm not coming back," I said. "I'm not going to sit there and pretend this is funny." "So you're just leaving?" "Over one comment." "One comment?" My voice sharpened. "Hannah, it's been years of comments. This is just the first time I believed you." There was a muffled whisper on her end. She must have covered the mic, then came back. "Okay, look. Just come home, all right? We'll talk. You're upset, I get it. We'll figure it out." "They'll go home," I said. "You stay. Finish brunch." "What?" "No. They'll come right now. Stay," I repeated. "Enjoy your jokes. They'll be there when you're done." She bristled. "Why are you being so dramatic?" "You gave our marriage 6 months in front of your friends," I said. I walked out. "You tell me who's being dramatic." "Ethan, I'm done talking about this on the phone. Drive safe." I hung up. For a moment, I just stood there, heart pounding over a strange, quiet calm. Like I'd finally stopped swimming against the current. The walk home was 20 minutes of second-guessing. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe it really was just a joke. Maybe you're about to wreck your life over brunch. But every time that thought surfaced, I saw her friends laughing, heard her voice. I give this marriage 6 more months, tops. Maybe she didn't mean the timeline, but she meant the distance. The way she'd already stepped outside of us and turned our marriage into material. When I opened the apartment door, Everything looked the same. The couch, the crooked picture frame, the faint vanilla candle smell. But it all felt wrong, like I'd broken into a set built to look like my life. I dropped my keys on the counter and stared at the empty table. My ring finger felt naked. I kept rubbing it like something was missing that I'd never get back. Memories flickered past. Her laughing at my proposal because I stumbled over the words. Her telling her mom I was too stable, like that was an insult. Her rolling her eyes when I wanted a quiet night instead of some rooftop bar with people I didn't care about. None of that was unforgivable on its own. But together, it made one thing brutally clear. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being a partner and become a running gag. An hour later, the door opened. Hannah walked in, sunglasses on, lips tight. She took one look at me and sighed like she'd walked into a mess left on the floor. "So," she said, dropping her purse. "That was fun. How was your 6-month trial marriage review?" I asked. She glared. "Can you not?" "Sit," I said, nodding at the chair. She hesitated, then sat, arms folded like she was the injured party. "Okay," she said. "Say what you need to say." "You humiliated me," I said. "Oh my gosh, Ethan. Nobody even knows us there." "I know us," I said. "And you know us. That should be enough." "It was a joke," she insisted. "You keep saying that like smiling means it didn't come from somewhere real." She fell quiet. "You've been doing this for a long time," I continued. "Making me the punchline. My job. My clothes. The way I like staying in. You always say you're kidding, but I'm laughing less every year." She blinked hard. "So what? You want a divorce? Over brunch?" "I want respect," I said. "I want a wife who doesn't treat our marriage like something she's stuck in until something better comes along. I want to feel like you're on my side, not performing on a stage." "That's not fair. You know I love you." "Do I?" I asked. "Because your version of love doesn't look much like mine." That landed. Fear flickered in her eyes before she masked it with irritation. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry?" "Fine. I'm sorry. Happy now?" "No," I said. "Because you're not sorry. You're uncomfortable." Silence stretched between us. "We need help," I said finally. "A therapist. Something. I'd rather be alone than feel alone in my own marriage." Her phone buzzed on the table. A group chat preview flashed on the screen. She flipped it over so fast it was almost funny. "So now I'm broken and need therapy?" She muttered. I said we. I reminded her. Both of us. We went in circles for another half hour, her half apologizing, half blaming. Every time we got close to the truth, she dodged with a joke or turned it back on me. Finally, I was done. "I'm staying at Mark's tonight," I said, standing. "You're not leaving," she shot back. "Just for tonight," I said. "I need space." "You're punishing me." "I'm protecting myself." She watched as I packed a small bag, arms wrapped around her body. In the mirror, I saw her face. Angry, scared, but not truly sorry. As I walked past her, her phone buzzed again. This time, when she picked it up, she hesitated, thumb hovering, eyes softening in a way they hadn't for me all day. The contact name was mostly hidden by the notification bubble. Just a single letter. J. I didn't say a word. But as the door clicked shut behind me, that letter lodged itself in my mind like a splinter. Maybe this wasn't just about jokes anymore. I crashed on Mark's couch that night. He didn't ask many questions at first, just handed me a beer and tossed me a blanket while some late-night game mumbled on the TV. We'd been friends since high school, the kind of guy who could tell something was wrong just from the way I knocked. "Hon?" he finally asked. "Yeah." He waited. When I didn't say more, he muted the game. "All right, man. Spill it." So I did. The brunch, the 6-month joke, leaving the ring, the phone call, the fight in the kitchen. Saying I'd rather be alone than feel alone. I even told him about that notification from Jay. I didn't plan to, but the image of her face when she looked at her phone kept replaying in my head. When I finally stopped talking, Mark sat back, rubbing his jaw. "Dude," he said, "I love you, but it sounds like she doesn't respect you. At all." "I know," I muttered. "I just kept pretending it wasn't that bad." "That's what you do," he said, not unkindly. "You give people every benefit of the doubt. Thing is, if someone doesn't value that, they just take advantage. Even if they don't mean to." "Yeah. And who's Jay?" he asked. I shrugged. "No idea. Could be anyone. Probably harmless." Mark gave me a look. "You believe that?" I stared at the dark TV screen, our reflections side by side. I don't know what I believe right now. He let it go. We talked a little more, then he headed to bed. I tried to sleep, but kept waking up with my heart racing, like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. In the morning, I went into work, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. Turning off my phone crossed my mind, but I left it on. If nothing else, I wanted to see how hard she'd actually try. There were 3 texts from Hannah. Hannah, are you still staying at Mark's? Hannah, can we talk after work? Hannah, I'm sorry about brunch. Can we please move past it? No, I know I hurt you. No, I get why you're upset. Just let's move past it. Like it was a pothole wet hit, not a wall. I didn't answer right away. I needed space from the knee-jerk urge to fix everything. All day, I kept replaying Mark's question. Who's Jay? I wasn't the jealous type by nature. Hannah had guy friends. I'd never thrown a fit about that. But something about that text preview, the way she looked at it like she was afraid I'd see, not guilty, exactly, but caught, stuck with me. On my lunch break, I finally texted her back. Me. We can talk tonight. I'm not coming home until later. I need honesty from you, Han. All of it. She responded almost immediately. Hannah. Of course. He'll cook. We'll talk. I love you. There it was again. I love you. The words that were starting to feel like wallpaper, still there, but peeling at the edges. After work, I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes in the parking garage, hands on the steering wheel, just breathing. Part of me wanted to drive anywhere but home. Another part of me knew I couldn't live in this limbo forever. When I walked into the apartment, the smell of pasta sauce hit me. She was at the stove, stirring a pot like some commercial for domestic bliss. She turned when she heard the door, gave me a careful smile. Hey, she said softly. Hey. We did the awkward half-hug people do when they're not sure what they're allowed to feel yet. Then we sat down at the table, plates between us, untouched. She went first. I thought about what you said, she began. About the jokes and everything. And you're right. You've been mean. I didn't realize how much. I guess I got used to playing it up for people. I watched her closely. This was closer to real than we'd been yesterday. I'm sorry, she said, and this time it actually sounded like she meant it. Not just for brunch. For all the little comments. I didn't think you took them that seriously. That's the problem, I said. I do take us seriously. She nodded, wiping her eyes quickly. I know. And I think maybe I was scared of that. Like, if I let myself admit this is real and forever, that's a lot of pressure. So I made it into this running joke. It's stupid. I wanted to believe that. God, I really did. That's why I mentioned therapy yesterday, I said. Because there's stuff under this we clearly haven't dealt with. She hesitated. I called a counseling office today, she said. A couple specialist. They have an opening next week, if you want it. That surprised me. You actually called? She pulled a business card from her pocket, slid it across the table. Proof. For the first time since brunch, a small part of me relaxed. Maybe this was fixable. Maybe this was our bottom, and we'd build back from here. Then I remembered the text. Jay. Hannah, I said carefully. Is there anything else I need to know? Anyone else? Her face went still. I saw it in an instant. The tiny stiffening around her eyes. The way her fork froze halfway to her mouth. What do you mean? She asked. When I left yesterday, your phone kept buzzing, I said. I saw a message come in. From Jay. She blinked. You were looking at my phone. I saw the notification when it lit up, I said. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking. Is there something I should know? She laughed, but it sounded forced. Wow. So now I'm not just mean, I'm cheating? I didn't say that. You implied it. I held her gaze. I noticed you were a lot more shaken by that text than by me walking out. That's what I'm responding to. Color rose in her cheeks. It's nothing. Just a friend. What kind of friend? A work friend. The kind you hide from your husband? Her jaw clenched. You're twisting this. I'm asking you for honesty, I said quietly. If there's someone else you've been leaning on more than me, if there's feelings there I need to know. Because if I'm fighting for something you already checked out of, I'm wasting both our time. Her eyes filled, but this time the tears didn't look soft. They looked angry. He's just someone I talk to, she snapped. We grab coffee, we text sometimes. It's not what you're suggesting. How would you feel, I asked, if I had a woman I texted more than you? Someone I vented to about you. Someone I hid under a letter. She looked away. That was my answer. I felt something inside me crack, not a dramatic shatter, more like the quiet sound of ice splitting on a lake. Have you met him alone? I asked. She didn't respond. Hannah. Yes, she whispered. A couple times. For drinks. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd blow it out of proportion and, this isn't out of proportion, I said, voice low. This is emotional cheating at best. It's not like that, she said quickly. We just talk. He listens. He doesn't make me feel stupid when I say I'm overwhelmed. I swallowed hard. I didn't know you felt overwhelmed because you make everything a joke before I can take it seriously. She wiped her cheeks, mascara smudging. I know. I messed up. I liked feeling heard. My chest hurt. You could have come to me, I said. That's the thing, she said softly. I don't even know how to anymore. We sat there in silence, the pasta growing cold between us. So that's it, I said at last. You have a guy who listens and a husband you roast at brunch. And you're surprised I walked out. I'm not with him, she shot back. I'm here, aren't I? For now, I said. She flinched. I pushed my plate away. We'll go to counseling, I said. They'll try. But I'm telling you right now, Hannah, if I get even a hint that you're still talking to this guy, or that you're more invested in whatever this is with him than fixing us, I'm done. For real. She nodded slowly. Okay. Delete his number, I said. Tonight. Her eyes flickered. I will. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But trust, once cracked, doesn't grow back overnight. And I had no idea then that her idea of deleting Jay from her life was going to be about as serious as her brunch jokes. We went to counseling. Thursday nights, small office above a dentist, soft lamps, 2 mini throw pillows. Our therapist, Linda, was in her 50s with kind eyes that made you feel like you'd better tell the truth, because she'd know if you didn't. The first session, Hannah did most of the talking. She cried, said she'd grown up with parents who fought all the time. That joking was how she learned to survive tension. She said she loved me, that brunch was the dumbest thing Eve ever done, that she never meant to make me feel small. I sat there, hands knotted, listening. Part of me softened, but another part stayed on guard. That letter J glowed in the back of my mind like a warning light on a dashboard. Linda turned to me. What do you need from Hannah to feel safe in this marriage? It was weird, hearing it put that way. Safe. I need to trust that I'm her person, I said. Not just the guy who pays half the rent while she vents to some other man about me. Hannah wiped a tear. I deleted his number, she said quickly. I blocked him. I'm all in on us. Linda looked at her. Can you say his name? Hannah hesitated. Jake. Jake. So Jay had a face now. A guy she worked with in marketing, she explained. Great listener. Easy to talk to. They'd started messaging during a busy season at work when she felt like I didn't get how stressed she was. He's just someone who showed up when I felt alone, she said. And what stopped you from telling your husband you felt alone? Linda asked. Hannah didn't have an answer for that. We left that session with homework. No jokes at each other's expense, and a nightly 15-minute check-in to talk without phones. It sounded simple enough. Honestly, it even felt hopeful. For a couple of weeks, things got better. She caught herself mid-jab a few times and corrected it. We sat on the couch and actually talked. She admitted fears I'd never heard her say out loud. About getting older, about not being as fun as her friends, about feeling like I'd outgrow her if I kept being so stable. I told her my own fears. That I wasn't exciting enough, that my steady job and quiet nights bored her. That one day she'd wake up and decide she wanted a guy like Jake instead. She swore up and down that wasn't true. I chose you, she'd say, curling into my side. I don't want some fantasy guy. I want my husband. If this story ended there, would have a neat little redemption arc. The brunch scare, the therapy, the renewed vows. Roll credits. But real life doesn't tie itself up that easily. One Tuesday, about a month in, I worked late. System rollout, delayed train, the whole thing. I texted Hannah that I'd be home around 10. She didn't answer, but I figured she was in the shower or on a call. When I finally got off at our stop, I cut through the little bar a block away, the one with the big windows and the neon sign that said open late like it was a promise. I only went that way because it shaved off a minute. Funny how much can change in a minute. As I passed, something in the corner of my eye snagged. A flash of red, Hannah's coat. I glanced in the window. She was at a corner table, back half turned toward the glass. Across from her sat a guy I recognized from a company holiday party picture on her Instagram. Taller than me. Sharp haircut. Easy smile. Jake. Her hand was on his forearm. Leaning in, That same animated expression she used to save for me when we first started dating. His body angled toward hers like they were the only two people in the room. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was this weird, hollow quiet. Like the sound you hear after you drop something and it shatters, right before people start reacting. I could have walked in. I could have made a scene. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a quick photo through the glass. Not because I wanted to blackmail her or blast it online. Nothing like that. I just knew that later, she'd probably tell me I imagined it. That it was harmless. That I overreacted. I needed something to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. Then I walked home. She came in about 40 minutes later, cheeks flushed from the cold, a little too bright. "Hey," she said, shrugging off her coat. "You're home late." "So are you," I answered. "Yeah, I grabbed coffee with Megan," she said easily. "We were near the office." I looked at her, really looked at her. "You sure it was Megan?" She froze just a fraction of a second. "Long enough." "Yes," she said. "Why?" I pulled out my phone, opened the photo, and slid it across the counter. Her face drained of color. For maybe 10 full seconds, we just stood there, the picture between us. Her hand on another man's arm. His eyes on her like she was the only light in the place. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "It's not what it looks like." I actually laughed, a short, broken sound. "You know, I always thought that line was only in movies." Tears sprang to her eyes. "Ethan, please. We just needed to talk." I wanted to tell him I couldn't keep. "Keep what?" I asked. "Lying? Sneaking? Using him as your emotional support while your husband thinks you're working on your marriage in therapy?" She covered her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry," she choked. "I know how bad it looks. I panicked when you brought him up. I said I'd cut him off, but I didn't. I thought I could slowly distance myself without hurting him. And then you ended up having secret drinks at a bar a block from our apartment," I finished. Real subtle. She reached for me across the counter. I stepped back. In that moment, something inside me finally finished breaking. Not violently. Not with shouting. It was more like a rope snapping after being pulled too tight for too long. "I believed you," I said quietly. "Even after the brunch, even after the texts. I still believed we could fix this. And you were still choosing him." "I wasn't choosing him over you," she said quickly. "I swear. It's complicated." "No," I said. "It's really not. You had a choice. Be honest with me, or keep sneaking around with him. You picked the second one." She sagged against the counter, crying openly now. "What are you going to do?" She whispered. I thought about the ring ID left on that brunch table. About the empty groove on my finger. About all the times ID swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. "I'm going to do," I said slowly, "what I should have done the second you gave our marriage a countdown clock." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, please. Don't say that. We can still." "I'm calling a lawyer," I said. "Tomorrow." The word hung between us, heavy and final. Lawyer. For the first time since this whole thing started, I saw it land. Really land. Not as a threat, not as drama, but as the natural consequence of 1,000 little choices she'd made and tried to laugh off. She slid down to the floor, back against the cabinets, sobbing. I watched her for a second, heart aching and weirdly numb at the same time. "I loved you," I said quietly. "Love," she sobbed. Please, Ethan, don't leave." But I already had, long before I grabbed my keys and walked out into the cold night, leaving her alone in the kitchen with the picture of the life she'd set on fire. The next morning, I kept my word. I didn't wake up in a dramatic new life. I woke up on Mark's lumpy couch with a crick in my neck and the smell of burnt coffee because he forgot the filter again. Real life doesn't care if you're going through a breakup. It still hands you bad coffee and traffic. On my way to work, I called a lawyer a coworker had recommended once, back when marriage problems were something that happened to other people. Her name was Rachel. Calm voice, straight to the point. I told her the basics. She didn't sound shocked. She just said, "Come in at 3. We'll talk options." Filing for divorce felt less like an explosion and more like signing for a package I never ordered. A few papers, some fees, a quiet "I'm sorry you're going through this" from the receptionist. That was it. The end of 4 years reduced to a manila folder. When I told Hannah that night, she didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just deflated. "You actually did it," she whispered. "I told you I would." She nodded, staring at the floor. "Jake texted me," she said suddenly, voice flat. "His girlfriend found our messages." He says we need space. There it was. Not that I felt any triumph. If anything, it just made me sad. She had burned down her marriage for a guy who bailed the second there were consequences. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it in a strange way. She laughed, this bitter, broken sound. You're sorry? I wrecked everything, and you're still nicer to me than I deserve. I didn't argue. The next few months were a blur of logistics and paperwork, splitting accounts, dividing furniture, figuring out who got the car. She stayed in the apartment. I found a small place across town with creaky floors and a weird stain on the bedroom ceiling. I bought a cheap couch and a thrift store table. It didn't look like much, but it was mine, and no one made jokes about it. Word got around, like it always does. Some people reached out, some didn't. My mom tried hard not to say I never liked the way she talked to you, but it slipped out anyway. Her friends unfollowed me online in slow motion, like I was disappearing from that world one pixel at a time. I heard bits and pieces about Hannah through mutual acquaintances. She started going out more, trying hard to prove she was fine. The brunch group kept meeting, but it wasn't the same. Apparently, even they thought the Jake thing went too far. The jokes that used to make them roar now just made them exchange looks. I saw her once, months later, outside that same brunch spot. She looked tired in a way makeup couldn't fix. We did the awkward wave. She walked over. Hey, stranger, she said. Hey. There was a long pause. I'm in therapy, she blurted. By myself. I needed it. I'm glad, I said, and I was. Not because I wanted her back, I didn't, but because I didn't want the worst version of her to be the final one. She swallowed. I lost more than I thought I would, she admitted. You. My friends. My job. Almost. HR got involved when Jake's girlfriend complained. I'm on probation. She gave a small, humorless smile. Turns out when you treat everything like a joke, nobody trusts you when it's serious. I didn't gloat. I just nodded. Consequences weren't my revenge, they were just gravity finally doing its thing. You look good, she said. Lighter. I thought about it. I feel honest, I answered. With myself, finally. That helps. She wiped at her eyes. You were a good husband, Ethan. I just didn't know how to be a good wife. Maybe one day you will, I said softly. Just not with me. She nodded. You dating anyone? Not really, I said. I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not busy trying to be someone's punchline. She smiled a little at that, sad but real. For what it's worth, I hope whoever you end up with laughs with you. Not at you. Me too, I said. We said goodbye. No big speech, no last-minute plea. Just two people standing on a sidewalk where our marriage had first cracked, finally admitting it was over. Time did what time does. It moved. I threw myself into small things. Learning to cook something besides frozen pizza, hitting the gym with Mark, saying yes when coworkers invited me out instead of automatically texting, maybe next time. I started volunteering on Saturdays with a local youth program, teaching basic computer stuff. Those kids didn't care about my relationship status, they just cared that I showed up when I said I would. About a year later, I met someone at that program, a teacher named Lily. She was nothing like Hannah. Quieter, steadier. When she teased me, it was gentle, and she never needed an audience for it. The first time I told her a story where I messed up, she didn't turn it into a bit. She just laughed with me, then asked what I learned from it. We took it slow. I told her about the divorce on our third date, half expecting her to run. She just nodded and said, "Sounds like you finally chose yourself. That's hard. I'm glad you did." Maybe that's what a happier ending really looks like. Not fireworks, but peace. Sitting on my secondhand couch with someone who asks, "How was your day?" and actually waits for the answer. Waking up without bracing for the next joke at my expense. Being able to look in the mirror and not see a man who stayed where he wasn't respected. As for Hannah, last I heard she'd switched jobs. Smaller company, less glam. She moved to a cheaper place across town. From what mutual friends say, she's quieter now. Still quick with a joke, but more careful where she aims it. I hope that's true. I hope she learns something from all this, even if that lesson came with a high price. People ask me sometimes if I regret walking out of that brunch. I regret that it had to come to that. I regret the years I spent ignoring the ache in my own chest. But the moment itself? Leaving my ring on that table, choosing my dignity over a room full of laughter? No, I don't regret that at all. If there's a point to this whole messy story, maybe it's this. Love without respect isn't love, it's just attachment dressed up pretty. And the moment someone treats your life together like a countdown joke, you're allowed to stop laughing, stand up, and walk toward a future where you're finally the main character in your own story.